Welcome back to the deep dive. If you've been with us, you know we've been trying to get our heads around this paradox of modern health.
The information overload.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We know more than ever about, inflammatory pathways and micronutrients, but when you actually look in the pantry, you just freeze. It's this total paralysis from all the conflicting data.
And that paralysis is really a signal, right? It's a sign that the old system of just following advice is broken.
Yeah.
We spent the last deep dive talking about why. Why traditional nutrition science just leads to these endless contradictions is because it keeps asking the wrong question.
What should I eat?
What should humans eat? And that always generates conflicting answers. It leaves you totally dependent on the next expert, the next guru.
Which takes us right to that kitchen counter chaos. I mean, you're standing there at 6 o'clock, you're staring at, a chicken breast and some vegetables,
Yep.
and suddenly you remember 7 contradictory things you heard about kale and sweet potatoes and seed oils.
The kale is virtuous, but it makes you bloat. The sweet potato is supposed to be healthy, but then your energy just tanks an hour later.
You feel completely betrayed by your own body, even when you're trying to do the right thing.
Because you're managing theories, not nourishing a human system. So today, our mission is to just abandon that question. We're getting rid of what's optimal.
Okay.
And instead, we're going to focus on what can humans eat using a constraint-based method. We're switching from soft observational data to the hard, non-negotiable rules: physics, chemistry, human genetics.
Okay, let's unpack these constraints. These are the non-negotiables, right? The things that don't care about diet trends.
They don't care at all. There are mechanisms that are preserved in our biology.
So what are the core ones we need to hold on to?
The first one, and it's maybe the most critical, is the protein ceiling.
Okay.
And this isn't about avoiding protein. It's about a hard maximum limit. It's your liver's capacity to process nitrogen from protein into urea so you can get rid of it safely.
Oh, traffic bottleneck.
It's exactly like a single-lane bridge. You can only handle so much traffic before you get this huge toxic backup. Exceed that capacity consistently, and you create toxicity.
That's a really helpful way to think about it. And respecting that limit, it instantly filters out so many of these, super high protein fads.
It does. And then you have the famous conflict, the Randle cycle.
Right.
The Randle cycle is all about how your cells pick their fuel. And to put it simply, if you give your cells high levels of both glucose from carbs and fatty acids from fat, the fat basically gets in the way. It inhibits the cell's ability to use the glucose efficiently. It's metabolic gridlock.
So the body can't decide what to burn.
Can't decide.
Okay.
So it just ends up storing everything, the excess glucose and the fat. And that leads directly to insulin resistance and, confusion.
So if that's the fundamental constraint, the goal has to be metabolic clarity. You have to force the body to commit, either fat or glucose, not both.
Precisely. You have to avoid that high-fat, high-refined carb conflict zone.
All right, what's the last key one?
The last one is the isotopic evidence. I mean, just looking at the hard data from our evolutionary history.
2 million years of it.
2 million years. It shows us operating as, highly effective omnivores, often apex predators. And this sets the boundary for what our metabolism actually evolved to handle. It proves our bodies have the machinery for both fat burning and, when it's appropriate, using carbohydrates.
This frame, it really does dissolve the paralysis. We're not looking for one perfect prescription.
Right.
We're just looking for compatibility. We're asking, does this way of eating respect the protein ceiling? Does it respect the Randle cycle?
That's the literacy you gain.
Yeah.
You're not following rules, you're understanding the system. And the constraints, they reveal a whole spectrum of what's possible.
A spectrum.
Yeah. And where you sit on that spectrum, whether you lean high fat or maybe more moderate carb, that depends entirely on your own context.
Your genetics, right. We're talking about things like your AMY1 copy numbers, how well you break down starch.
Exactly. Or your APOE genetics for fat processing. Plus your activity level, your current metabolic health. The mechanism provides the rules, but your body provides the final calibration.
Exactly.
Okay, let's put these rules to the test.
Yes. This is where the rubber meets the road. Let's run the most popular modern diets through this filter and see what's coherent and what's just creating contradiction. Let's start at the low-carb end of the spectrum, keto.
Okay, the ketogenic diet. Typically around, say, 70-75% fat, 20-25% protein, and maybe 5-10% carbs.
Right.
Mechanistically, this is highly coherent. It respects that protein ceiling by keeping protein moderate, which, that surprises a lot of people. They think low carb means all the protein.
Wait, I have to stop you there. Because when people hear high fat, high protein, they immediately think kidney stress. So does that protein ceiling constraint, does it directly address that safety concern?
It absolutely does. The critical point is that a moderate protein intake, say around 20-25% of your calories, that's well within the liver's safe clearance capacity. Keto works because it forces maximum fat oxidation. The Randle cycle is crystal clear. There's no glucose signal getting in the way.
Well, it's all about that fuel clarity.
Total fuel clarity.
Okay, yeah.
The body just taps into its preserved ketogenic machinery. It's a survival mechanism, really.
So what's the main watch out here? What do you need to be careful of?
Well, beyond avoiding all the processed keto junk food that's out there now,
Yes.
the main mechanical watch out is minerals. You have to make sure you're getting adequate sodium, potassium, and magnesium. As your insulin levels drop on keto, your kidneys excrete more water, and those minerals go right out with it. You have to consciously put them back in.
That makes sense. Okay, so moving slightly up the carb spectrum,
Yeah.
paleo. It's sold as this ancestral ideal, but our sources say there's a really important distinction to make.
There is. So a typical paleo pattern, you're looking at maybe 30-40% carbs, 30-40% fat, 20-30% protein. And if you do it right, if the carbs are coming from tubers and whole fruits, and you're avoiding refined grains and seed oils, it's solid. It respects the protein ceiling. It avoids metabolic disruption. It kind of mirrors that flexible omnivory we see in the archaeological record.
But the sources are really skeptical about the label, right? We can't just call a banana from the supermarket paleo.
Absolutely not. The modern sweet potato is a perfect example. It has been bred for centuries to be far, far starchier and sweeter than its wild ancestor.
Ancestral carrots were basically bitter little sticks.
Right. So this shift, it's all driven by agriculture. It means if you're eating a huge volume of modern paleo tubers, you might still be violating your personal metabolic constraint if you're not genetically set up for that starch load.
So the mechanism works, but our modern food system makes the execution really tricky.
Yes. And another washout. Modern paleo often gets way too lean. People eat boneless, skinless chicken breast, and they miss the ancestral fat emphasis. You're shortchanging the body's need for energy density.
Okay, next up, the Mediterranean diet. It's promoted everywhere as the gold standard, but does it pass the constraint test for everyone?
Well, the research on it is profound, no doubt. But the analysis shows it works primarily for very specific populations. People with high AMY1 copy numbers, so strong genetic adaptation to starch, and who also have a long, long tradition of using high-quality monounsaturated fat, like olive oil.
So it's metabolically coherent, but only if you have the genetic hardware to actually process that higher carb load efficiently.
Correct. The mechanism works because it's moderate, it avoids extremes, it uses high-quality fats, it uses whole food carbs. But the crucial watch-out is how it gets misapplied.
Oh, yeah. We see the pasta and the marinara.
And we forget the olive oil and the whole fish.
Right.
When that diet becomes low-fat marinara on a huge pile of modern pasta and bread, you've lost all the benefits. It starts to drift toward that danger zone of high refined carbs and low-quality fat, and then you're just inviting Randle cycle confusion.
Okay, let's go to the edge of the low-carb spectrum, the carnivore diet.
Right, so 70-80% fat, 20-30% protein, and basically zero carbs.
Yeah.
This is an extreme version for sure, but it is supported by historical patterns. Think about high-latitude populations.
Sure, the Inuit.
Exactly. As long as fatty cuts are prioritized, the protein ceiling is respected, and the body just maximizes fat adaptation.
So what's the unique mechanistic advantage here? Why would someone do this?
It's about maximum metabolic clarity. And crucially, the complete elimination of plant-based irritants. Things like oxalates, lectins, even high fiber loads. For someone with severe gut dysbiosis or certain autoimmune issues, removing all plant matter can provide this profound, immediate relief. You're just removing the source of irritation.
But the nutrient constraints here have to be huge. This is not for the faint of heart.
No, you have to be rigorous. You have to focus on organ meats.
Yeah.
A diet of just lean muscle meat is a deficient diet. You need fresh liver for vitamin C and B vitamins. You need to pay very close attention to your minerals.
Right. Okay, now we have to address the vegan diet. Looking at the numbers, like 70-80% carbs, this seems the most difficult to reconcile with those constraints.
It creates the greatest tension, for sure. It just flat out contradicts 2 million years of isotopic evidence showing humans as high trophic level omnivores.
So how do we explain the fact that, well, people can survive on it?
Modern humans, and especially those with certain genetic adaptations, can survive. but it requires rigorous planning and supplementation.
It's a constant management job.
It is. It violates fundamental nutrient density constraints. You need external support for B12, for bioavailable iron and zinc, for preformed omega-3s. You have to constantly manage your intake to get all the essential amino acids.
So the watch out isn't just supplements, it's the sheer effort involved.
The effort and the modern food landscape, again. A vegan diet built on processed, high-starch, sweet plant foods is a huge metabolic departure. You have to be vigilant to avoid those gaps.
And finally, the one we're all trying to escape. The standard American diet, the SAD.
The SAD. It aligns with zero constraints. It is a perfect case study in metabolic incoherence.
So what makes it so uniquely destructive from a mechanistic standpoint?
It's because it's high enough in both refined carbs and industrial seed oils to trigger maximum Randle cycle confusion.
Ah, there it is.
The refined carbs spike your insulin, which tells your body to stop burning fat and start storing energy. At the exact same time, you're giving it tons of dietary fat, which is the perfect substrate for storage.
The body is getting screamed at to store energy and handed all the bricks to do it with.
Precisely. And then you add in the inflammatory cascade from all the omega-6 seed oils, and the system is just completely overwhelmed.
That's the clarity we needed. It fails because it's indecisive with its fuel. It violates the Randle cycle by trying to run two programs at once.
That's it. So the constraints, what they really do is eliminate that one unprecedented combination.
Yeah.
High refined carbs plus high industrial seed oils plus inadequate protein. That's the boundary that guarantees failure.
And within the boundaries of what is possible, you see that spectrum emerging again. You have the fat-dominant approaches where protein's moderate and carbs are low.
And you have the carb-moderate approaches where fat is still adequate and high quality, and the carbs are from whole, unrefined sources. Both of those paths respect metabolic reality.
Okay, so now for the final step, the most important one, individual calibration. How do we take this knowledge and apply it to our own lives?
You start by using your known genetics as a filter. So if you know you have high AMY1 copy numbers, that's your mechanistic permission slip to move toward the higher carb end of that spectrum.
So maybe 20 or 30% carbs.
Maybe. You could probably incorporate things like properly prepared rice or oats with fewer issues because you can just process that starch more efficiently.
And what if someone has a marker like APOE4, which is often linked to fat metabolism issues?
Well, the APOE4 genotype, it's associated with higher risks when you consume a lot of saturated fat. So the constraint analysis would tell you to emphasize high-quality monounsaturated fats, fish, olive oil. You prioritize fat quality over everything else to keep things coherent and reduce inflammatory stress.
We can also filter this based on our life stage or our goal, which are kind of like temporary constraints.
Yes. If you're pregnant or lactating, the constraint is an increased need for nutrient density. So you increase calories by 300 to 500, and you prioritize DHA-rich fish and iron-rich organ meats.
And what if you're reversing metabolic syndrome?
Then you might deliberately start on the other end, maybe 60, 70% fat, 10% carbs. And you monitor your metrics fasting glucose, insulin sensitivity over a few weeks to verify that it's actually working for you.
You know, this whole method, it just completely shifts the dynamic. The protein ceiling, the Randle cycle, these aren't opinions. They have verifiable mechanisms. You can't violate them.
And that's the whole value of replacing should with can. It builds a different kind of trust. It's not trust in some expert's authority. It's trust in the mechanisms themselves, which work whether you believe in them or not.
So when something doesn't work, you don't just throw the whole thing out.
You use your literacy to adjust, not to quit.
And that's what prevents the cycle that traps so many people, the expert dependency, the obsession with metrics that ignores how you actually feel, and the information overwhelm that just leads right back to paralysis.
The constraint-based reasoning interrupts all of that. It shows you the physical limits, it gives you the tools to verify them, and then it trusts you to calibrate yourself within those boundaries.
What's fascinating is how this concept can be applied so broadly.
Oh, this method goes far beyond nutrition. When you're dealing with something like gut dysbiosis, you stop just throwing generic fixes at it. You look for the mechanistic blocks. Is it low stomach acid? Is it bile insufficiency? What are the physical constraints that are preventing healing?
So you adjust the approach instead of just declaring failure.
The solution isn't better opinions. It's recognizing and respecting the harder physical constraints.
And that's the final provocative thought we'll leave you with. How many areas of your health or even your productivity are currently stuck because you're chasing some ideal should? When just switching your question to what can I actually tolerate or sustainably commit to would bring immediate, verifiable clarity.
A brilliant place to conclude this deep dive.
It really is. Thank you for walking us through all of this.
My pleasure. And for anyone interested in exploring more of these essays on rethinking health from first principles, you can find Mark Carlson's work at healthundercontrol.com.
And for services that help you put these constraint-based principles into practice with that individual calibration we talked about, you can visit unblocked.health. Thank you for joining us. We'll talk to you next time.